So this is what I want to share. So I go to Zoom. And then, hold on. And I hit share. And then I hit this. And then I hit this. Okay.
Got it.
Can you see it?
Success, absolutely.
Magic. Okay. So I'm going to try and buzz through this. I think I have to make it a little smaller so you can see it. Laura gave me a huge list of things to cover. And so I'm going to try and cover them all. The whole first part of this is stuff, mostly stuff you know about. And so I will go through it. It's transit priority areas that you know about, but I want to tell you how they still apply. Sustainable development areas, those some of you know about way too much. Accessory dwelling units, it's just a quick refresher. Complete communities, you probably need to know about them. Blueprint San Diego, we wish we didn't know about it. Senate Bill 9, very brief, and then I have to change and go to PowerPoint for the Senate Bill 10 stuff. So transit priority areas still exist. Just so you know, TPA still exist in the city of San Diego. They are a half-mile radius as the crow flies from major transit stops. According to the city code, they're based on a transit improvement program, which only has a 4 to 5 year planning range. That's what the municipal code says. But the city's map says that it goes out to 2035. So that really means that it's a regional transportation plan. So nary the twain shall meet. The reason we have a problem with transit priority areas is if you look at this map here, this one happens to be up in Carmel Mountain Ranch. Here, where my cursor is right here is the transit stop. And the only way you can get to it by walking is 3.1 miles. You have to go over the overpass and over the freeway. But if a crow can do it, it would be very close. And the city hasn't changed this. Okay, so when it comes to state law, they're still using this. Okay. So that's what I wanted you to know. This is the TPA map. It still exists in its current form. And now I have to make this a little smaller. So yeah, bear with me because I am not technological, but see where it says long-term through 2035?
Mhm.
That means that they're using the regional transportation plan, even though their city code says they're using the 4 to 5 year transit plan. They're actually using stops that go out to 2035. So they're internally inconsistent, but we're down here somewhere. And we're pretty much stuck in the whole TPA anyhow. But now we have a whole new problem to worry about. We have what was passed on February 28th. Lorna and Alex know way too much about this. We have the sustainable development areas. And this is the new law that they just passed. And this is for codes that relate strictly to city zoning legislation. Now, this is based on walking distance, not the way the crow flies. And this is based on the regional transportation plan, which means it can go out to 2050. Stops that don't exist now and may or may never be funded, and that may or may never exist up till 2050. Now, there's some really interesting things. This is actually the code, except for what I've written in red. So it talks about these mobility zones, which are very convoluted, and I won't bore you with them. But what's important to know right now is that they go up to a mile away from transit stops. We were shooting for a half a mile because that's what all the literature says people are willing to walk. The city ignored all that and went to a mile. The other thing to notice here, is they include mobility zone 1, mobility zone 3, and mobility zone 4. The city left out mobility zone 2. We didn't mention it to them when they were doing their code. Mobility zone 2 is defined as the sustainable development area, but they didn't put in a measurement from transit for mobility zone 2. So when they go to execute it, we're going to have a little difference of opinion because it's not in there. They just left it out. Okay, the other thing I wanted to point out with this red type is the whole time they were creating the sustainable development area, they kept changing it because they kept finding problems with it. So they added opportunity zones to mobility zone 4 in December when they started working on this thing in September. And the week before they approved this, on February 8th, they added these things called specific plans. So it went from meeting to meeting, and they never basically approved the same code twice until it finally got to the city council. So what does this do? It added 7,500 new acres outside the TPA. It's huge. And they changed the code the week before the vote. There is no mobility zone number 2. They never provided any data to support the fact that it's a miles walking distance to transit. They never provided mobility zone maps. If they did, they might have noticed that they left out mobility zone number 2, and they never provided any data for the transit stops. So who's this going to hurt? The people it's going to hurt are the people who most need the transit. And those are the people who need the affordable housing and the new dense housing, because now it can be built a half to a mile away from the transit. And we have data from Sandag that says that the people in San Diego who use transit, 92% of them walk 1/2 mile or less to use transit. And now they're going to force people, the city is going to force the people who need to use transit to walk a half to a mile to get it, because they're going to let people build this far away. And the other thing it's going to do, let me make this larger so you can read it. See, I can do this technology. Okay, this is from 2021. And this shows that in 2021, all across San Diego, 9% of the homes that were purchased by investors. But certain neighborhoods and areas were purchased in excess of 9%. And those areas were all south of the 8. They were District 9, District 8, and District 4. And they got hammered. So it's, I don't know if you can read those. It's Azalea Park, Chollas Creek, City Heights, Cholla Park, East San Diego, El Cerrito Heights, Redwood Village, Rolando Park, Talmadge. And of course, this includes El Cerrito, all of El Cerrito. It's District 9, 92115. 92102, Chollas View, Golden Hill, Grant Hill, Mount Hope, South Park, Stockton, Barrio Logan, Logan Heights, Mountain View, Shelltown, South Crest, and then down near Encanto, District 4 got hit really bad. That was the worst, with 20% of the properties. And the numbers are even higher for 2022, but we don't have them yet by zip code. So we will be getting those. So it's hurting the areas south of the 8. We're getting bought out by investors, and that means less opportunities for equity through home ownership. And the other thing that we know is that at a half-mile walking distance from transit, 21% of the homes are within reach for ADU bonus program, okay? But when you move it out to a mile, 50% of single family homes are now eligible. So you've opened up, you've more than doubled the amount of homes that are now eligible for these big density projects, just by extending it with the SDAs. And the other thing we learned in our research is that for transit-oriented development projects and infill projects and infrastructure grants, the state stops at a half mile from transit. They say you're not eligible. So for those projects that are built between the half mile and the mile, the city's made itself ineligible for grants for those projects. And for the feds, they say that there's, I won't get the words right, but that there's a natural relationship, a logical relationship, functional, between transit and development up to a half mile. And anything beyond that half mile, the city will have to prove that there is a functional relationship. So there's a higher bar that they have to prove to be eligible for federal funds for all of these projects that are beyond a half mile. So they've basically made it more difficult, if not impossible, to get funding for these projects. And as we all know, the city has almost a 5.2 infrastructure spending gap or funding gap. And now they're making it worse on themselves by creating the SDA for any of these local projects. Okay, ADUs and JADUs. So what this shows you is with the SDA, there's now 6,603 acres outside of the TPA that are now available for ADU and JADU programs that weren't available before, because it's up to a mile walking distance from transit. And if you want to know what else Cerrito looks like in the sustainable development area, it's totally inside the sustainable development area. There is nothing in El Cerrito that isn't in that area. We're totally enclosed in it. Okay, this is just a little update from numbers that I got recently from DSD. So these are permits, they're not units, okay? They're not housing units. But according to the Development Services Department, last year, 970 permits for ADUs and JADUs were approved. And the year before, 2021, they had told us there were 798. But thinking twice about it and recounting everything, they've decided now there were 892. So I'm not sure, they gave me no explanation for why they've upped the number by that much. But those are the numbers. Again, it's not units. Now, I also am working on calculations. So these aren't the final numbers, but I'm working on them just for District 9. So you know, and again, don't live and die by these numbers, but this is what I've got so far for District 9. So the first one is the only one that's in a multi-dwelling zone, and they built 8 ADUs. These other ones are ones that have been permitted, I believe, in District 9 in 2022. And there are, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 projects totaling 27 units. So that's a grand total of 35 ADUs. And the total for all of the projects in 2022, this is just bonus projects, bonus units, in 2022 was 125. And that means that District 9 got stuck with 28% of the bonus ADUs, and we're 11% of the population. It's, you know, given redistricting. So we get screwed. Okay, and two of these, if you guys know Eric Rosenzweig, one of these is behind his house, the Manchester, and one of these is across the street from his house, 69th Street. So he's got 7 behind his house on one lot and 6 across the street from his house. So, okay. Now, here's the next one, complete communities. That's what has allowed 8 stories for the Family Health Center. Okay. Basically, complete communities blows out the underlying zoning for height limits and the floor area ratios. So you might not know what a floor area ratio is. So really quickly, the FAR, it tells you how many square feet of building you're allowed based on the lot size. So say you have a 6,000 square foot lot. The FAR for that is 0.58. That tells you you can build a 3,480 square foot house on it. And the zoning tells you it can be 30 feet tall. So I'll come back to that. The complete communities lets you ignore, lets the developer, ignore the community plans. So where is it eligible? Where's somebody eligible to build this? With SDAs now, where any portion is zoned for commercial, residential, or mixed use, and it's zoned for 20 dwelling units or more per acre, generally, you can build complete communities. And it's allowable in high fire hazard severity zones as long as they follow building code for fire zones, okay? So this is why when we look at the community plan for the college area and somebody puts in 29 dwelling units per acre, we go, that could be a 10-story building. That's the problem. As soon as they do that, it's eligible because we now know that all of El Cerrito and almost all of the college area is in the SDA, and the SDA now applies to complete communities. Okay, so at the moment, the city collects no impact fees on any affordable units for complete communities or any unit that is 500 square feet or under. And almost all the units have been 500 square feet or under. So they build 250 units and they pay nothing because they make them micro units. And we're stuck with all the infrastructure costs, we the taxpayers. And here's the kicker. The percent of affordable housing that they have to provide is based on the base zone. It's not based on how many units they build. It's based on how many units they would have been allowed to build before complete communities. Okay, so here's the example. There's one that they're trying to build down in Uptown, and it's 301 Spruce Street. There are 261 units, and all they have to make affordable is 22. That's 8.4% of the units. But of those 22, 8 of them are moderate income at 120% of the area median income. So only 5.4% are for low or very low income. And that building, they're trying to get it to be 17 stories right at Maple Canyon, casting its shadow over Maple Canyon. And the people are trying to get it to be smaller and more affordable units and a bunch of other things. But all of this is made possible by complete communities. And complete communities has, it's got a very convoluted, complicated system that I won't try to explain to you, but the system determines the FARs. If it's downtown, there is no limit on the floor area ratio. So no height limit, no nothing. None of these have height limits. But what's important here is in our area, the FAR is 6.5. Okay, so that's going to become very important in a minute. I'll bring you back to it. So this map is out of date. I got to make it smaller for you because this is when the complete communities was still governed by TPAs. Now it's governed by SDAs, and they haven't put out a new map yet. So all of these colors are related to the FAR tier they're in. But everything here will be bigger and thicker because it's not related to TPAs anymore. It's related to the 1 mile FAR of a. Okay. So this is what it looked like in our area, in the college area. So here's the triangle, here's college, and here's El Cerrito, basically, right in here. But this is before the SDAs. And we're affected by this FAR tier, which is 6.5, okay? But there's going to be much more of this because now it's not a half mile. Now it's a mile. Now I made this handy dandy little chart. I'm really proud of myself. I had to make it twice after my computer crashed. So here's my little map that I borrowed from the internet of El Cerrito. And then I made this chart for you. So this is supposed to also be El Cerrito. I couldn't exactly outline it because I'm not very good at that. But the zoning that we're allowed, the orange stuff in here is, it's called CU2-3. The red stuff is CU2-4, and all the tan stuff is RM1-3. Okay, so we're going to take a 10,000 square foot lot because that's a really round number and easy to use. The FAR that's now allowed on these on these zones are 1, 2, and 1.05. And the height limit allowed on them are 50 feet, which would be 4 to 5 stories. No height limit, which would be a maximum of 21 stories, but it wouldn't happen because you only have a FAR of 2. And 30 feet for the RM1-3 for the tan stuff, okay? So what you do is you take the FAR times the lot size, and that tells you how many square feet of building you get. So for the orange stuff right here on, where is that? That's El Cajon Boulevard. For that orange stuff, you would get 10,000 square feet of building space on a 10,000 square foot lot. So you would set it back, you know, you'd have your setbacks and everything. And then you would build onto that, and as tall as it could be would be 50 feet tall, probably 4 to 5 stories. For the red stuff, you could go taller, and it would be 2 times the 10,000 square feet. It could be 20,000 square feet. And for the tan stuff, it could only be 10,500 square feet. With complete communities, I told you, you have a 6.5 FAR. Each of those could be 65,000 square feet of building. Okay? So that's why complete communities is scary. Okay, so all of these, they could, on 10,000 square foot lot, you could have 65,000 square feet because the height limit doesn't count anymore and the FAR doesn't count anymore. And with the SDA, they just made it all bigger. Okay, now, Blueprint San Diego. This is a new thing the city's working on. It hasn't been approved yet, but it will. I call it the magic black box because they can't explain anything it's supposed to do. This is what the city says. This is a quote. Blueprint San Diego is a proactive effort, hold on, to create an equitable and sustainable framework for growth to support current and future San Diegans, to create homes and jobs by transit, to expand options to walk, bike, take transit, and to make progress toward climate goals. So for the college area, because we know it, this is the Blueprint San Diego draft propensity map that they gave us for the college area to justify the college area plan. Okay, so the purple is supposed to tell us where the density is that we're supposed to accommodate. So the high propensity is in light purple in the center, and then the medium high propensity are the shades of blue, okay? So I say, where's the best college area transit? Well, here's where my cursor is. It's along El Cajon Boulevard here. And it should be all along the trolley. But surprise, surprise, it's not really up here at all. So the purple is located around actually the greatest population density, which is at the university, which we already knew. And we didn't need this blueprint to tell us either of those things. And it's not telling us where the transit is in this case, or in this case. But they think they use this to justify our plan. So this is the plan they gave us. I'm going to make it bigger. Oop, I'll make it even bigger. I can do that now. Okay, so this is the plan they gave us. So you see, there's all this density here and here, which is where students are living. But they gave us a plan that's full of density here, and they put it in the middle of this neighborhood here, up 63rd Street. And see here, we don't have any purple, and they're putting giant buildings here. And they said, see, so this is supporting, Blueprint is supporting the plan we're proposing. So now I'm going to make it smaller. And I'm going to show you what I think they used to justify this plan. And that's two other maps they did. One they did showing where there's 5 or more bedrooms, which they took to mean student housing. And the other one is properties where they showed rentals. Now, to me, that looks a lot more related to the plan they proposed than this Blueprint San Diego map, for which they've given us no explanation. They just gave us some algorithms and said, so we got this map from this plan. And now I've reprinted the plan here, so it was handy for you. And I say that the density along El Cajon Boulevard and the trolley it belongs there, not in the neighborhoods, but actually on the transit corridor, because that's where the transit is. And it belongs here because that's where the transit is. But this density up here on Saranac, up to Saranac, there's nothing on their plan that said it belonged there, and they put it there. There's nothing on their heat map that says it belongs running down 63rd Street, and yet they did it. And then there's nothing to say it should run deep into these neighborhoods where they put it. So, or actually deep into this neighborhood where they put it. But they're not playing by the rules. So what you need to realize on this map is that anything that isn't this color, this yellowish color, is zoned this orangey, the lightest color is 29 dwelling units per acre. So anything on this map that will meet those mobility zones can be in complete communities. Everything that's a bright color can be complete communities and have no height limits. So right here, going up the middle of these residential neighborhoods, that can be skyscrapers. If it meets, if it's in the SDA and it meets those other criteria that they set. And we won't know until we see the new maps. So that's what complete communities does. We have a 6.5 FAR where we live. There's no height limits, and anything without that yellow background is potentially fair game. Okay, the last thing is Senate Bill 9. I'll go through this really quickly because it's probably the least relevant. It was adopted by the City Council in April of this year. It's a duplex and a subdivision bill, and it was championed by Tony Atkins, and she said 4 means 4. And what that meant is the most that you can put on a single family lot is 4 units. Even if you subdivide it, it can be 2 and 2. The total is going to be 4. Okay. So the way the city implemented it, it can be allowed in single family zones only. There's a total of 4 units on what was originally 1 lot. If you make it 2 lots, it's still 2 and 2. You can split a lot, or you can include up to 2 ADUs. You can't split it and have ADUs. If you split it, you can have 2 housing units on each, a duplex on each, but you can't have a house and an ADU and an ADU. So you lose ADUs if you split the lot, but you can have 2 housing units on each. The reason this was championed was because it was supposed to expand homeownership possibilities. If you split the lot, then it was believed it would make for more affordable housing because you didn't have to buy more land. You could divide the land price in 2 and make the house less expensive. We don't know yet if it'll turn into that. To try and discourage investors from doing this, she was forced to put in there that the owner has to live on the property for 3 years. Okay. The kicker is you can subdivide any lot down to 1,200 square feet, and you have to be allowed to put 2 800 square foot units on it. That's 1,600 square feet on a 1,200 square foot lot, which gives you a FAR of 1.33. For single family lots in San Diego, the FARs range from 0.7 to 0.45. So this is almost double the highest FAR on a single family lot in San Diego. But the impact fees for the first 2 of the 4 units is nothing. They wanted to make it competitive with what they did with ADUs. So there are a couple of exceptions. You can't put it in a historic district because Tony Atkins lives in an historic district. That's my opinion. If the property was rented in the last 3 years, you can't do it there. You can't put it in multi-species habitat areas, and there's some other exceptions, but those are probably the 3 biggest ones. This has not taken off, probably because of the 3-year residency requirement. There have only been 7 applications as of the first of the year. 3 included lot splits. We don't know if people will try and sell them separately. And 3 were without lot splits, and it looks like 1 has been abandoned. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing there, and then I'm going to go to Senate Bill 9.
10.
Are we good?
You
Yeah.
said, is it Senate Bill 10 is next?
Yeah,
right?
Senate Bill 10. Thank you, Newell. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I would have gotten there eventually. I'm going to the right place. Okay, now I have to go back to Zoom and I have to reshare, and maybe I'll come up in the right place and not screw up. Okay, okay, now it's PowerPoint, I think. Okay. Okay, Senate Bill 10. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yes,
Okay, good. All right. Senate Bill 10 is first and foremost a way to avoid CEQA. It allows an entity, a city or whatever, to build up to 14 units on a lot without doing an EIR or being subject to any kind of a CEQA challenge. And we are not aware of any other city or entity that has adopted Senate Bill 10. How you can use it, how it's used. It allows for ministerial approval. What that means is no public notice, no public hearings. It just silently goes through Development Services Department, just like these horrible ADUs and complete communities, until somebody in the community gets a whiff of it, and then boom, there's grading and excavation, and it's on its own. We have nothing to say about it. It allows 10 housing units on a parcel. And here's the really sneaky part. If it had 11 housing units, it would have to go through an EIR. And you remember I said it allows 14. So the sneaky part is they allow 2 ADUs and 2 JADUs, and then they write into the legislation that the ADUs and the JADUs don't count toward total dwelling units. So there's 14 units, but the ADUs and the JADUs don't count. Okay. And it can be, we don't know how it's going to work, because anywhere in the legislation so far, you've only been allowed 1 JADU on a property. And if there's a JADU, it's required residency. You always have to live on the property if there's a JADU. This doesn't say that. It's silent on residency for JADUs. So that'll be interesting. So, okay, next slide. Where can you use it? It can be used on any urban infill site that is residential or mixed use, if 2/3 of the mixed use is residential. Now, urban infill is almost anywhere in the city. So it's a parcel located in a city or urban area cluster per the Census Bureau. It's anything where 75% of the perimeter adjoins parcels with urban uses. And it needs to be zoned for this residential or mixed use, or it can be in the general plan designation for that, even if it's not zoned for it yet. Okay. And then, or, not and, but or, which we'll get back to, in a transit-rich area. And a transit-rich area is within a half mile of a major transit stop. Notice it doesn't say walking distance. So it could be as the crow flies again. It could be across the freeway in Carmel Mountain Ranch. Or it can be on a high-quality bus corridor. Now, the one thing I did get Seth Lichney to say was, when it says on a high-quality bus corridor, which is a single bus line, and it says what the requirements are, how often the bus has to run and so on. He did interpret that to mean literally on the corridor. So it's not, if it's El Cajon Boulevard, it's not one house away from El Cajon Boulevard. It has to be, to meet that it has to be on the boulevard. So that was the good news. However, because it says or, Seth Lichney said they could take it to be an urban infill site and apply the SDA to it so that it could be a mile away from transit. So, all right, that we got that far. Now, what are the exemptions, if any? The only exemption is that it can't be an open space. And it gets worse. It can supersede local initiatives. And I was trying to think, what local initiatives could it supersede? The coastal height limit. So they could take a 2/3 vote. The city council could take a 2/3 vote and they could overrule the coastal height limit for this, if they so chose. I think there might be like pitchforks, people with pitchforks going into City Hall. But anyhow, they could do that. And this is an area where people, it's been mentioned that this might be open for a legal challenge, since the voters have voted in the initiative. But it hasn't been challenged because nobody has undertaken to adopt Senate Bill 10. And here's another thing that is most unusual in this code. It says that the density that is approved for Senate Bill 10 cannot later be reduced on any Senate Bill 10 zoned parcel. It can't be changed. And the other thing I should have pointed out earlier is they can vote to approve this on a parcel by parcel basis. They could vote to approve it a block at a time. They could approve it for a certain area, for a community planning area, or they could say they're doing it for the whole city. There's nothing that's pre-specified for this at all. Okay. Now, the city talked about it. They had a meeting on March 3rd that some of us went to, and they talked about it, and they billed it as missing middle housing. And there's a lot of confusion about what missing middle housing is. So I want to do like a little mini education here, and forgive me, I might read some stuff, but missing middle housing is conflated with moderate income households and moderate income housing. And they may overlap, but they're different from one another. So the people who created the term missing middle housing, the term was coined in 2010 by Daniel, I think. Yeah, Daniel and Karen Paralek, and I'm not sure I'm saying their name right. But I got to hear Karen Paralek speak earlier this week, which was quite enlightening. So this is a missing middle housing chart, let's call it. And the city talked about duplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses in their presentation, and they actually showed this chart. They didn't talk about 14 units or 10 units, really, or apartment buildings. They kept going back to duplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses. And I pointed out to Seth Lichney that for duplexes and fourplexes, they had Senate Bill 9. So they didn't need Senate Bill 10. And maybe it was sort of dishonest to keep talking about duplexes and fourplexes. But anyhow, the missing middle are these yellow houses in the middle with the red roofs. And the idea of missing middle, missing is because most of this kind of housing hasn't been produced since before World War II. That mostly since World War II, it's been more skyscrapers and larger buildings and single-family homes. And there's been this dichotomy. And so that's the missing part. Some people will say it's been illegal to produce the housing in the middle since then. But if you look at it, it's been permitted all along. There's just been a lot less of it. And middle is because it bridges the gap between these two kinds of housing. It isn't about income. Okay, so I'm going to just read this so I get it right. It's a range of house scale buildings with multiple units considered compatible in scale and form with detached single-family homes located in walkable neighborhoods. The building types include duplexes, fourplexes, cottage courts, which we would call bungalow courts in San Diego, and courtyard buildings. They're supposed to provide diverse housing options, and supposedly when a variety of missing middle building types are combined in a neighborhood, usually with detached single-family homes, they help provide enough households within walking distance to support local businesses and public transit. So it's the idea of creating a mass that will support economic development and support transit without destroying a neighborhood. And I'll get to that in a minute. They're called missing because they haven't been built often since the 1940s, and middle because they are in the middle of a spectrum between detached single-family homes and mid-rise to high-rise apartment buildings. The terms in terms of form and scale, as well as number of units and often affordability. And then they show you this. So when we went to the meeting on the 2nd of March, the city didn't allow us to talk about Senate Bill 10. They broke us into small groups. They refused to answer direct questions. And instead they allowed us to talk in small groups, and they asked us to contribute on these subjects. Did we think they should have 2-bedroom or bigger than 3-bedroom units for Senate Bill 10? Did we think, they should be waiving diffs? Do we think some of these units should be deeded affordable? Do we think there should be ownership opportunities? Where should they put them? And should they be scaled development? What we weren't allowed to say was that these could turn into the Huffmans of the 2020s, where they just drop apartment buildings into the middle of single-family neighborhoods. Maybe they turn the front of the apartments into parking lots like they did for the Huffmans, but probably they won't allow any parking at all, because that's what they're doing now to encourage transit. And this is not what the Parallax had in mind. And I know that because I had the opportunity to listen to Karen speak this week. So I want to show you what they had in mind. So this comes from their book. So the smaller units in the backyard with the red roofs, I would liken those to ADUs. So they're small, they're single. You notice there's not 9 of them in a backyard or 6 of them in a backyard, like what San Diego is doing with the ADU bonus program. They're small, they're unobtrusive, they're not taller than the houses or bigger than the houses, and they're single units. The denser, larger development is along a different street. It's not plopped down in between the houses so that it is disrupting the single-family neighborhood. So where we are, these would potentially be along a university or along College or along El Cajon Boulevard. And there's one more example I want to show you, and it's here. And this will allow me to explain something else that she explained, which was very enlightening. So in this case, these are larger units, obviously, and these are more graduated to get to the houses. But what you don't see here are 4 front doors. Okay, what you see is 1 front door, and yet Karen Paralek would call this a 4-plex, because from the street, she doesn't want these identified as 4-plexes. She wants them to look like a single-family home with close to, if not a single-family footprint, and smaller units within, so that they don't disrupt the neighborhood. And she doesn't have them plopped down in the middle of the neighborhood. She has them as something that's graduated going to the busier street with the larger units. And what she distinguished them from are what she called slot houses, which she said are taking over Denver, which I believe is where their company is, where you take, first she talked about townhouses, where you'd have 4 houses in a row. That's what some people want to call a 4-plex. And it has 4 front doors and looks completely different and out of place in a single-family neighborhood. And she said, but worse still is you take the 4 townhouses, you turn it sideways, which is what they were showing us in the college area plan for the housing types. You turn it sideways and you run it long ways down the lot. And then you run another one next to it and another one next to it. And you have these long, either driveways or walkways with these dark apartments at the back. And what's facing the street is a wall, and you have no sense of community. Where she pointed out, here you have a front porch, you have a front entranceway, and it looks like a single family home. And any division in this property is inside the doorway. And it looks like it belongs in the neighborhood, and it looks like a single family home. And that was the distinction that she made for introducing any kind of density, which she called gentle density, into a single family neighborhood. But she's not plopping them down everywhere, and she's putting the heavy density on the major arteries. So that's my education for tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think the missing middle is really interesting, because the city keeps saying, you know, their vision is that they're missing the middle in housing for middle income, for the 80 to 120% AMI. And what they were saying in this panel is, it may be very possible that this housing is affordable to people in that income bracket, but it's pretty much by virtue of the size, because it's smaller. But that is not what missing middle was meant to be. It was meant to be refer to the housing type, not the income bracket. And the fact that they overlap is great. So that's what I got for you. What have you
I
got
have
for
a
me?
question.
Yep.
It seems like they're, if they're interpreting missing middle as like the 80% AMI,
Yep.
they could have placed that requirement on bonus ADUs and gotten it, but they chose not to.
Yes. Yes, I mean, okay, and I'll tell you something else that happened in the meeting, as long as we're mentioning that. I said to Seth, you know, if you're looking for affordability, I have an idea for you. And that is because 110% is ridiculous. for the AMI. And I said, why don't you make, I'm not that I'm in favor of the bonus program at all, but if you're gonna keep doing it, let the first one be at 110% or whatever it is, you know, whatever the AMI is gonna be. Make the second one be at 60% if they're gonna get another one, and make the third one be at 50%. Don't keep giving them the moderate income AMI.
Yeah.
And he said, that's a great idea. Send it in. And I said, I will, but I sent in 30 ideas last year. You only took one. And I said, you only took it because it was a mistake you made in the code and I correct. And he laughed. But anyhow, he thought that was a good idea. But I mean, they've got to do something. This is ridiculous. They're not providing affordable housing. And they're aware of it, but they, you know, they want this moderate income because in the last housing cycle that they call it, the fifth one, over 8 years, they only had 37 units in moderate income. 37, but it's because they don't count anything unless it's deeded that way. They don't keep track of what the rents are. And so if they don't keep track of it, if it's not deeded, it doesn't count.
Are they beginning to realize that trickle down housing doesn't work?
No one has admitted that to me, Newell. If anybody admits it to you, please call me.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, you do that.
Does anybody have any questions for Dana?
I put the PDF of the first presentation in the chat. No, I
Great.
emailed it to you. That's what I did. I don't know how to put it in the chat. I emailed it to you.
Okay.
And I'll have to get somebody to Newell or somebody will show me how to get the second one to you.
Do you
Okay,
know how to
great.
print this second one?
The second one is on a Google Drive.
Yeah, it looks like you're on Google Slides. You know, you can just hit File, Save As, and you can download it as a PDF to your own computer.
Hold on.
File save as, or you can print it to PDF using Microsoft
File. It
Save
doesn't-
As.
It's not giving me a save as.
Say, did you
I'm on a
do
Mac.
the file down under the N under Neighbors for a Better San Diego?
Under the N.
Right there?
Yep,
And
save as.
save as Google Slides.
Download.
Yeah, there you go. Let's download in Google, sorry.
Download
as a
PDF.
Yep,
Okay.
now that should be a PDF.
Okay.
So if you send that to me, I can put it up in the, if people want this information now before you even leave tonight.
Okay. I'll send it to you.
Okay, and then we can see if we have any other questions.
Yep.
Looks like you have two hands, Laura.
And Greg, can you call on them? Because I can't see based on what's going on my screen at the moment.
So first one is Laura.
Yeah, I want to say, Dana, you did a wonderful job. Everything was very well explained. I think that if anybody had questions, you answered a lot of them, and I want to give you a huge applause. And
Oh,
thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you. And you guys all know where to find me if you have questions.
Right, but you did a
Next one
great
is-
job. Thank you so much.
Next one is Denise.
Hi, good evening. I agree with everyone. You did an excellent job, but unfortunately, I missed a good portion of it. Am I to believe that parking is not part of the features?
The way things have been going, I mean, it sort of varies for things, but in the last couple of years, if anything has been within a half mile of transit, the city has required no parking, and it's now not requiring parking for businesses or anything else.
And it's going into, is it going into a mile with SDAs?
I imagine they'll take it to a mile with SDAs, but I don't know that, Newell.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, they don't care.
No.
Obviously.
They
Yeah, thank you.
want people to walk or bike, walk or roll, and they don't care about the handicapped, they don't care about the elderly, they don't care about people with small children parking. They want to socially engineer us out of our cars, regardless of any limitations we might have.
Who is they?
The city,
Who's in power right now?
yes.
You find that most of these that are in power right now will be leaving our area in 4 to 5 years because they're going to continue to move up the ladder. And they're going to move out of San Diego. We're going to be left with this.
Well, it's not a moment too soon.
Well,
Hey,
hopefully
still-
many of them will leave next year.
Dan, I
But you're
can't
still
hear-
going to be left with it.
Yeah, but we can at least stop it.
Dana, I can't put your document up because, hang on. I can't put your document.
Laura, your hand's up.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I have heard that there are quite a few of developers who are continuing to offer parking in their plans because they know that people still want to be able to drive, and that just because the city is not requiring it doesn't mean we will not be seeing it.
Well, they're smart people. The first complete communities project that was done in the city is called Sequoia. I think there's 107 units. It's over on Redwood and Fifth in Bankers Hill. I think there's 107 units or maybe 103 units. They built no parking, and they couldn't rent the apartments. And so the next thing you knew, on their listings, it said parking available. And they had to provide either surface parking or parking in a neighboring building that the residents had to rent, because they couldn't rent the building, the rooms, apartments, without providing parking.
Right.
This community health center's got a lot of parking.
Yeah.
Hey, Dana, this is Lorna. I'm sorry. I can't put up your document because you're still screen sharing it, so.
Oh, what do I know? Okay.
Right, sorry, I had two mics open. It was going crazy.
It's all right. It's all beyond me.
I don't see any other hands up or any other questions.
Will we look for these in the chat?
Yeah, it's still not letting me. It's still not letting me put it up. I don't know why. It's just saying edited document can't be sent because it's still open. Dana, maybe try closing all your windows you have open if you don't need them open on with what you're
Sure.
doing.
Sure, hold on.
It shouldn't matter, but
Hold on. That one's
We can put
closed.
it at the website too.
yeah, I could give them to our webmaster and he can put them up.
Right.
Okay, it's all beyond me. I mean, you guys are way light years ahead of me. I'm closing everything.
Dana, after listening to your presentation, I think you're too kind and too humble. I think
Oh.
you're probably way ahead of us.
Oh, no. I know the material. I just can't function technologically.
I'll
You
trade
did
you
pretty
any
good to
day.
me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I closed the stuff. I don't know if that'll help.
I'm trying one more time. Oh, you know what? Hang on, just one minute.
Maybe
It might be
you have-
me. It might be it's open on my computer.
That's where I expect it to be open.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
BJ.
Okay, so now let me try. Yeah, success. Okay, there's one and there's one more coming. Sorry, Dana,
It's all right.
my bad.
It's all right. I could still believe it was me. So no problem. So I don't see it there, but I believe you.
I just saw
BJ
it.
has his hand up.
Oh,
Yeah, BJ, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't want to keep you long. I just really want to thank Dana for this presentation because I understood better the overall planning. I understood what you said. I understood how you presented it. And I'm really, really appreciative because I serve on a planning board, community planning board, and I need to have this information as well as the whole community does too. But it was an outstanding job.
thank you.
And I mean, just, I wouldn't say I was mesmerized, but I was about ready to, but I normally quit at 8:30, whether we're through or not.
Yeah.
I stay for the whole thing and I will stay for the overtime and I will stay for the party because it was outstanding. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And if you guys come up with any questions, let me know. And, I someday maybe I'll learn to give a presentation without my opinions, but I wouldn't hold my
Please
breath.
don't.
Oh, I see. Mom.
I think
There we go.
BJ, you need to let other people on your planning board know about this presentation because my guess is that they don't understand it as well as it was explained tonight either.
I'm sure that's true. But that was really excellent, Dana. In fact, you should probably try to get that published in something like Journal of Urban Planning because it's really very stunning. In fact, I'm in correspondence with Nico Calavita,
Yes.
and he's actually coming to town next week.
Mm-hmm.
And Lauren and I are going to meet him next Friday morning.